In a boxing match, when the bell rings, you assume that both fighters are meeting on equal terms, but in 2009, that trust was shattered. Just minutes before Antonio Margarito was set to defend his title against Sugar Shane Mosley, officials found something hidden in his hand wraps, a hard plaster-like substance, the kind of thing that could turn a punch into a weapon. It wasn't just a violation of the rules, it was a betrayal of the sport of boxing. For one man, it raised a haunting question. 6 months earlier, Margarito beat another champion, leaving him battered and his perfect record destroyed. At this point, the world wondered, did Margarito cheat in this fight too? This is the story of how a champion's rise to glory turned into a fall from grace, leaving a cloud of suspicion over all of his accomplishments, and how a wounded rival patiently waited for a chance at revenge.
What a dirty business to load someone's gloves with what amounts to cement and send him in to fight Miguel Cotto in a pay-per-view in Las Vegas.
Yes.
He was hitting Cotto with bricks.
Yeah.
That's all I know for sure. And he could have killed him.
Yeah.
You know, Cotto went through a life-threatening experience.
After the fact, when you found out that Margarito had hand wraps that were dipped in something, suddenly the Cotto fight made so much sense.
So I checked the pad, and when I checked the pad, it felt hard.
He was fighting with a cast inside his glove.
The commissioner flipped it open, and a block fell out of it.
How would you know if you had illegal wraps against Miguel?
Antonio Margarito was born March 18, 1978 in Torrance, California, where he lived until he was 2, then he moved to Tijuana, Mexico, which is where he learned how to box. He went pro at 15 years old as a welterweight, which is between 140 and 147 pounds, saying that he went pro early because he wanted to make money for he and his family. Right away, he was going up against grown men and mostly getting the best of them. He stood at 5 feet 11 inches tall, which is pretty tall for a welterweight, and he had a high pressure style, coming at you for a whole fight and throwing non-stop punches. His strong chin and unlimited stamina made him a tough match for anybody, because he would constantly come towards you and take every punch you throw at him while throwing a flurry of punches himself, which is how he earned the nickname the Tijuana Tornado. On July 21, 2001, at 23 years old, Margarito, with a record of 25-3-1, got his first title fight against Daniel Santos, but the fight ended in a no contest in the first round after they headbutted each other, which left both of them with gashes on their foreheads. He finally won the welterweight title in 2002 when he knocked out Antonio Diaz, and here's where he became a household name. He campaigned to fight Shane Mosley in 2003, but Mosley would end up taking the fight against Oscar De La Hoya. He would try to move up to the light middleweight division in September 2004 with the rematch with Daniel Santos, the guy he had the no contest with from the headbutt. And guess what? This fight would end with another headbutt, but this time it was in round 10. The judges gave the fight to Diaz, and Margarito would stay at welterweight after this. He would have the WBO welterweight belt for 5 years until July 17, 2007, when he would lose to Paul Williams in a unanimous decision. This loss upset Margarito because he felt like he should have easily won this one. This would be a pivotal moment in Margarito's career, but more on that later. On July 26, 2008, Antonio Margarito would agree to a fight with the undefeated Miguel Cotto from Puerto Rico for the WBA welterweight title. Not to be confused with the WBO welterweight title that Margarito had earlier. I know, boxing just makes up a bunch of different belts. This fight took place in Las Vegas and was Margarito's first ever main event fight at a pay-per-view event, making this his highest paid fight to date, so he had a lot of incentive to win this one. At the beginning of the fight, Cotto looked like his plan was to stand toe-to-toe with Margarito and outbox him, which he did until they traded a few blows. Halfway through the first round, for some reason, Cotto started to back away from Margarito, forcing him to chase Cotto, which is unusual. Miguel is usually the one moving forward and applying pressure in fights. Although he was moving backwards, Cotto would still win the punch exchanges while they were toe-to-toe, but he seemed to be avoiding them. A little over a minute into the second round, Margarito hit Cotto with a strong right uppercut to the body, and in my opinion, this is where the fight began to shift. He felt that hit and refused to stand in front of Margarito, moving all over the ring while Antonio would just walk him down, applying constant pressure, even giving him a bloody nose before round 2 was even over. Cotto went back into his corner at the end of round 2 with a bloody nose, and if you look, he even has a cut above his left eye, which isn't typical. Boxers have been knocked out in the first 2 rounds plenty of times before, but to have a bloody nose and a cut that early isn't common. The next few rounds were pretty much the same, with Margarito just chasing Cotto all over the ring, having him on the ropes. Now, I know I'm making it seem like Cotto was just getting beat up in this fight so far, but honestly, whenever they get in striking distance and trade blows, Cotto shows that he's the more skilled boxer. He was hitting him with cleaner, sharper punches, and his defense looked pretty good too. The judges had him winning the first 5 rounds. The problem is, Margarito seems to be taking every single punch thrown at him, and he seems to be gaining more energy as the fight goes on. Look, Cotto's hitting him with some good shots, but he just keeps coming forward, coming forward, coming forward. Imagine you hit someone with the hardest punch you have, and he just takes it and starts running towards you. That's one of the most discouraging feelings. He's displaying great defense, but there's only so many punches that you could block. The announcer even points out how hesitant Cotto looks, even though he's technically outboxing Margarito.
When they stand still and trade, Cotto lands more punches. But he doesn't want to do it much. He wants to keep moving away.
In round 6, Cotto was again still technically winning the fight, but as announcer Max Kellerman says, Margarito's really getting to him.
I think Cotto's actually dominating this round again, but Margarito is really making him pay a price in this round with those body shots.
Round 7 is where everything will go downhill for Cotto. In this round, Margarito would get all over him, not letting up, throwing punch after punch after punch, clearly stunning him a little over a minute into the round.
Cotto's hurt, guys. Cotto's badly hurt by a series of Margarito uppercuts.
By the end of this round, Margarito appears to have blood all over his body. And we didn't realize it was Cotto's blood until the camera pans to his corner and he has blood all over his face coming from his nose and his mouth. He even got some blood on the camera. In my opinion, the fight should have been over in the 10th round, but Cotto showed heart and he didn't want to quit. Then, less than 2 minutes into the 11th round, he finally took a knee, as Margarito was able to give him his first knockdown ever in his career, and you could see the damage done to his face.
Oh yeah. And Cotto goes to a knee.
32 career fights, and this was the first time he's ever been knocked down. He survived the 10 count, but you could see that he couldn't keep taking this abuse, and less than a minute later, Evangelista Cotto, Miguel's uncle and trainer, threw in the towel, and Antonio Margarito gave Miguel Cotto his first career loss, taking his WBA title belt away from him in an overwhelming victory. Margarito is now the #1 welterweight in the world. Now, the thing with a lot of fighters, especially one as tough as Cotto, is when they suffer a loss, they don't want to make any excuses, no matter how off things may have seemed. This win was just considered a dominant performance by a top boxer. It went unnoticed at the time, but as Margarito celebrated, something looked a little odd. Right here on his left hand, you see his hand wrap is torn, which would make no sense if it's just gauze, because gauze doesn't rip that way, especially not from a punch. Soon, this fight and Margarito's entire career would all come into question. On January 24th, 2009, 6 months after the Miguel Cotto fight, Antonio Margarito was scheduled to defend his title against Shane Mosley at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Antonio was the heavy favorite to win this bout at 4.5 to 1. Mosley's own wife even told him that he would lose.
She said, you'll have to give me $2 million because you're going to lose anyway. And it's going to be the last $2 million you ever get. And your fight career, you're 39 years old, you're old.
Her comments gave Mosley a little extra motivation to win this one, as they should have, because that's just crazy. As soon as they touched gloves to start the fight, the announcer casually revealed something that was going on behind the scenes.
Just minutes ago, the Commissioner of Boxing, Dean Lohaus, reported to us that an illegal pad was found in Margarito's gloves, something that would harden when wet, and that his hands had to be rewrapped 3 times.
So, in professional boxing, it's standard protocol for someone from each fighter's camp, like a trainer or a cut man, to watch the hand wrapping of the opposing fighter in the locker room before the fight, just to prevent any funny business, such as excessive tape, padding, or any foreign substances. The opposing trainer has to watch and approve the process, and this all happens under the supervision of a boxing commission official. When boxers wrap their hands, under certain guidelines, they're allowed to use padding for their knuckles, usually just gauze or tape. While Antonio Margarito was getting his hands wrapped by his trainer Javier Capetillo, Mosley's trainer Nazim Richardson, who was already suspicious of Margarito, said he felt funny about the way Margarito's right hand was wrapped. He saw one of the knuckle pads on the table that he was about to put in his left glove, and he picked it up and inspected it. Listen to him tell the story.
So I checked the pad, and when I checked the pad, it felt hard. So then the commissioner felt it. He said, that feels pretty hard. The commissioner flipped it open, and a block fell out of it.
Richardson then brought the pads to Mosley's doctor and said that the pads were wet and the material was similar to the material used to make cast, which has all the symptoms of plaster of Paris. Plaster of Paris is a material that starts out as a paste, and when you add water to it, it hardens after a few minutes. If a boxer was to put some in his hand wraps and his hands start to sweat, it would harden, and the further into the fight you get, the plaster would get harder and harder. This is what they use to make statues, sculptures, and casts when you break an arm or something, and Margarito tried to sneak this into his gloves. He was going to go out there and fight Shane Mosley with basically a plate in his glove, which could have seriously hurt him. At this point, it was all speculation, however, and the material found in the glove still had to be tested. Another thing was that these knuckle pads already looked used. They were discolored as if they had been sweaty before and had dried blood on them, which would lead one to believe that these pads were used already. And remember this because we're going to revisit this later. The pads were confiscated and sent for testing, and Margarito was ordered to rewrap his hands, even under closer supervision, and surprisingly, they didn't disqualify him and they still let him fight. I'm not even going to waste you guys' time. He got destroyed in this fight. Isn't it funny how when there's no bricks in your gloves, you don't seem to apply as much pressure as you did in the past? Shane got on him in that fight and would not let up. And again, he had extra motivation because of his wife telling him he wasn't going to win.
Man, he could have had whatever he had in the ring, he wouldn't win that night. That night, it was on. That night, it was like, I will fight this with whatever you got because I am not losing because I'm going to show her. Like, really? That's what you think about me? Okay. So I went in there. That's why it looked the way it looked when I fought. It looked like I was fighting for real because I was fighting for real. I was fighting.
Mosley would win every single round and ended up winning the bout in a 9th round TKO after the ref had to stop the fight.
Margarito is getting hit flush with every right hand. There's another one. There's a big left hook. Why not stop it now? And there's the white towel from the corner, and Shane Mosley has annihilated Antonio Margarito.
I don't even know if I could show that type of brutality on YouTube. While it was a great night for Mosley, this would begin the downfall of Margarito, and although they let him fight that night, his scandal didn't just end there. Just a few days after Margarito was brutally beat down by Shane Mosley, it was revealed that the pads were tested by the California Department of Justice laboratory, and the substance was in fact plaster of Paris. Margarito and his trainer Javier Capetillo then had a hearing where Capetillo claimed that he made a mistake putting those inserts in Margarito's gloves. He claimed that he reached in his bag to grab knuckle pads to wrap Antonio's hands, but accidentally grabbed the pads that had plaster of Paris in them, which I don't even know why he would have those in his bag in the first place. If anyone has an explanation for this, let me know in the comments. He also said that it was all his fault and Margarito had no idea what was in his wraps. After this hearing, both Margarito and Capetillo were both suspended from boxing for an entire year, which many thought was a light punishment. The last time this happened, someone got jail time. On June 16, 1983, Louis Resto beat undefeated prospect Billy Collins Jr. in a 10-round unanimous decision at Madison Square Garden. When the fight was over, Billy's father/trainer went to shake Resto's hand, and you could see him notice that all of the padding was out of his gloves, and he alerted the commissioner right away.
A lot of excitement here. You can call it just like the old days. Huh? You can't. Hold the commissioner. All the padding on his father's in the corner with him. Billy Collins. The father is in the corner.
As the refs are inspecting the gloves, Resto's trainer, Panama Lewis, nervously starts telling them that those are the gloves that were given to them.
Difficult for a father to deal with seeing his son in that condition and to get...
In most cases, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
After an investigation, it was revealed that the padding had been removed from each glove and Resto's hands were wrapped with plaster of Paris. Billy Collins suffered from a torn iris and permanently blurred vision, which ended his career, and months later, he drove into a water tunnel, tragically ending his life at just 22 years old, which his father believes was self-inflicted because he couldn't box anymore. Resto and Panama Lewis were both put on trial and found guilty of assault, criminal possession of a weapon, and conspiracy. Resto was served 2.5 years in jail, and Panama Lewis served 4 years. That's the same punishment that people think Margarito should have gotten. There was no assault because they caught him with the plaster before the fight, but how was there no conspiracy charge or a weapons possession charge if it was the same material? Either way, this was the beginning of people doubting Margarito's entire career. By this point, everybody was wondering the same thing. Has he used this plaster in any other fight? When did this start? A lot of fans speculate that when he lost his belt to Paul Williams in 2007, which had cost him a big payday, that was when he decided that something had to change. His first fight after that was his fight against Golden Johnson, where he knocked him out in less than 2 minutes into the first round. After taking a few punches early, Johnson wasn't even worried about throwing a single punch in this fight. He was only worried about dodging Margarito's punches. If his hands were wrapped with plaster here, it shows that he was willing to do whatever it took to get back to a big fight, and he got it when he got to fight Miguel Cotto. This scandal had everybody thinking Margarito for sure cheated during the Miguel Cotto fight. So I noticed something. When it came time to touch gloves before the fight, it could just be me, but is Margarito avoiding directly tapping gloves with Cotto? I wonder why. Let me know what you guys think. Remember earlier when I said that the pads with the plaster that were found before the Mosley fight appeared to be used and had blood on them? Well, that would lead one to believe that those were the same pads he used during the Cotto fight. Not to mention, the picture from after the fight, with his hand wrap ripped, was actually used by the California Department of Justice as evidence during the hearing where he ended up getting suspended. Alfonso Gomez, who has sparred with Margarito in the past, said that Margarito broke his nose in the sparring session and that nobody has ever hit him that hard before.
Do you think Margarito had used
Yes.
previous? Yeah?
Yeah.
No hesitation.
No. Let me tell you why. Personally, I've sparred many people. I mean, growing up as an amateur, I would spar a lot of people. And one time I sparred against this guy in LA boxing when it was in Washington. This one guy named Margarito.
Ooh.
He broke my nose in sparring.
What? Shit.
No, but I have never been hit so hard in my life.
So even in sparring, you think he was using that?
Damn,
you felt
Daniel.
it? You felt something?
I mean, I told my dad, like, I've never been hit so hard in my life.
If he loaded his wraps in a sparring match, that would be ridiculous. He's just doing too much at that point. The thing with people who cheat and just do illegal things is you don't normally get caught the first time you try. Once you get away with it for so long, you end up getting too comfortable, which leads to you getting sloppy, and that's how people get caught. The night of the Mosley fight, Margarito chose the wrong one to try to pull a fast one on. Nazim Richardson, Mosley's trainer, was the one that realized he was trying to put cement in his gloves, and he apparently has a keen eye for this. On September 29, 2001, Felix Trinidad was set to fight Bernard Hopkins at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Richardson at the time was Hopkins' trainer, and while he was watching the glove wrapping process, he noticed that Trinidad was using excessive wrapping and tape in a way that would make the wraps harder, which would give him an unfair advantage. Richardson would demand that he get re-wrapped, but Trinidad said that if he has to re-wrap, then he's not going to fight, which is the guiltiest thing anybody can do.
I just was talking to Mel Southard of the New York State Athletic Commission, and he said that Felix Trinidad's hand wrap was apparently illegal. Bernard Hopkins' camp is complaining about it, protesting. They want him to re-wrap his hands. Right now, Trinidad has said, if I have to re-wrap, I will not fight. They're in there right now, members of Don King and the New York State Athletic Commission trying to get this worked out. As soon as we find out a little bit more, we'll let you know. Back to you, Jim. Felix Trinidad has agreed to re-wrap his hands with a lot of consternation from a whole lot of people in this locker room. They finally got it settled. The problem apparently was that his hands were wrapped, according to someone from the Hopkins camp, hard as a cast. Everybody got in there, the New York State Athletic Commission got in there, and somebody convinced him that he had to do this because of the magnitude of the night. They are rewrapping the right hand. The dispute was only about his right hand. They're rewrapping it right now. That's his father, Don Felix. There also is someone here from the Hopkins camp and from the New York State Athletic Commission. They're rewrapping now, and they have someone in the other locker room right now watching and observing the way that Hopkins' hand is being wrapped.
His hands eventually got rewrapped, and Hopkins won the fight with the 12th round TKO. Years later, Richardson became Shane Mosley's trainer, and heading into the Margarito fight, he already had suspicions about Margarito. He said that when he saw the fight against Cotto, he found it odd that he can hit Cotto in the head and elbow, places that boxers usually hurt their hands when they hit, and his hands were unaffected.
There's things you see, certain things you can watch a fight, and things look peculiar to you. You see a guy throwing shots, hitting guys on the top of the cranium, hitting guys on the elbow, hitting a guy in their hands and never hurting. I'm doing that. Because every fighter, we teach our fighters, hit a guy in that cranium and mess your hand up. Okay, how you wrap that hand up? You see a guy can just come in and just punch anywhere. That's strange to me, man.
Mosley also said that they had already caught wind of the fact that Margarito's gloves may or may not be loaded and to beware. Nonetheless, Richardson's vigilance potentially saved Shane Mosley's life that night. Margarito's suspension would end in 2010, and he would fight Roberto Garcia in May, which he would win by decision. Then in November, he would fight Manny Pacquiao, where he would lose in a unanimous decision after Pacquiao broke his eye socket. After this, the fight that we all needed to see was scheduled. On December 3rd, 2011, Margarito would be scheduled to fight none other than Miguel Cotto in a rematch of the devastating 2008 fight. In the pre-fight showdown, Max Kellerman was trying to bait Cotto into blaming his loss to Margarito on him illegally wrapping his hands, but he never once took the bait and refused to make excuses.
What was it like getting hit by Antonio Margarito in your first fight?
It was tough, was hard being in this position, but no, I just have a good first part of the fight, and then I run out of gas since the 7th through the end of the fight.
Your face also didn't look so good after that fight. What did his punches feel like?
Yeah, hard puncher.
Yeah. Harder than other punchers?
No, he received punches from a bunch of boxers.
Until that point in your career, you'd never lost a fight.
Yeah.
And it was very strange to see Miguel Cotto take a knee late in a fight. Why was he able to do that to you?
After the round number 6, 7, I ran out of gas, and he took advantage of that.
Look at Max getting frustrated. You're not gonna get him to crack, just let it go.
People whisper and talk and say publicly, Miguel Cotto doesn't want to make any excuses.
Yeah.
Privately, he's furious because he believes that Antonio Margarito used illegal wraps against him in their fight. Can you address that?
The only people who can tell you if they use it or not is him or any member of his team. I just carry my defeat like a man the whole way.
Cotto did, however, eventually ask a very important question.
Their hand reps right after my fight. How's it broken there? It's just gas. The gas doesn't get break.
Margarito would go on to say that he doesn't know what he's talking about, and the picture is altered because it didn't look like that in person. One thing I will say about Margarito is even though he most likely had plaster in his hands in the first Cotto fight, his stamina and his ability to take a punch is what we can't question. He was relentless in that fight, and he seemed to never get tired, and that you can't cheat. This rematch had potential to be the fight of the year. Both fighters would get a little petty before the fight. Margarito was seen wrapping his gloves at a gym, and he joked with his trainer that he should wrap an actual brick around his hand, and he pretended that he wasn't gonna look. Nothing's funny enough to be laughing that hard. Like, haha, attempted murder, hilarious. Cotto, right before the fight, tried to have Nazeem Richardson, who originally caught Margarito with the plaster and the hand wraps, go to Margarito's dressing room and watch him wrap his hands, which the commissioner didn't allow.
So apparently Miguel Cotto pulled a quick one. He brought Nazeem Richardson to inspect the hand wraps of Margarito, but this ploy did not work, as Nazeem Richardson does not have a license in New York, so the commission did not allow him in the locker room. Some psychological games, but it didn't work. So what do you guys say about this? Miguel Cotto, Antonio Margarito, just 2 fights away. Stay tuned for more.
In the fight, you can see the difference in Cotto. The fight started out the same way. Margarito moving forward and getting outboxed by Cotto, who was moving around the ring. But you can see that Cotto doesn't seem to be as hesitant to deal with Margarito's punches as he was the first time around. By round 3, Cotto had Margarito bleeding from his nose and his eye already. He was winning every round, but the question was, will Margarito's relentless pressure break Cotto down again? By round 8, Margarito's eye was nearly swollen shut, almost a complete 180 from the last fight, when Cotto was non-stop bleeding from his eye by round 8.
Although the geography of the fight is very similar to the first fight, it is not the same fight.
With Miguel Cotto being Puerto Rican, and this fight being in New York City, which has a high population of Puerto Ricans, there was almost a home court advantage for Cotto. You began to notice it towards the end of round 9, when he was clearly in control and the crowd began to chant his name. By the end of this round, Margarito's eye was shut. Doctors came to his corner to check his eye, and they decided that Cotto did way too much damage to him for the fight to continue, and they stopped the fight after 9 rounds, giving Miguel Cotto the victory.
Sorry, said to stop it. It's over! It's over, and revenge is sweet!
This wasn't just a win for Cotto, it was redemption. Many people point to their first fight as the one that shortened Miguel Cotto's career because of how much damage he took, but he never made any excuses for the loss, and he just waited for a rematch. Margarito, who did severe damage to his face the first time around, now had to deal with the fact that his own face was the reason the fight stopped. His surgically repaired orbital bone was re-injured thanks to Cotto, who said he did it on purpose. In fact, Antonio Margarito never fought again, and his career will forever have a question mark on it.